Fans have an uncanny ability to breathe new life into video games years after their release. In the past few years, I've been absolutely blown away by the way fan communities of dead franchises have rallied together to update old games to newer, more modern standards. These groups have fixed glitches, translated region-locked exclusives, overhauled and upgraded graphics, added multiplayer to single-player games, and even completely remade games from the ground up. Community-based fan projects have come a long way from half-finished demos and dev sites that haven't been updated for years at a time. Now they exist as portfolio pieces, passion projects, networking opportunities, and so much more. I'm a big fan of how these talented individuals manage to bring fresh new content to different game series that sometimes haven't seen updates or new releases in years, or sometimes even decades. Some modern games even started out as fan recreations of other games, like Retro City Rampage. So today, I'm going to talk about a few examples of my favorite video games and franchises that have been vastly improved by fan endeavors.
Ready? Go!
Melee has proven so popular over the years that a lot of Smash players actually prefer it to more modern entries in the series. With that continued popularity amongst the tournament community, fans have actually made 2 attempts to reignite the flame left by Melee, and actually found a pretty good amount of success doing that. Project M for Smash Bros. Brawl adds in techniques like wave dashing, alters movesets, and changes balancing, and adds other mechanics that were removed to make Brawl more new player friendly. They even added Roy and Mewtwo back in as playable characters, 2 characters that have been removed from Brawl's roster entirely. In fact, after the original fan developers discontinued the project, a development build was leaked onto 4chan and revealed that if the game had continued its original production path, they would have added even more completely original fighters, like Knuckles, Lyn, and Isaac. And on a similar note, Melee HD was an attempt to do the exact same thing as Project M, but to Smash 4 on Wii U. Given the popularity of these mods, you can almost guarantee we'll see some sort of Melee fan mods for Ultimate on Switch as soon as fans are able to do so. There might already even be some people working on it. Who knows? But if you look at Nintendo's marketing strategy the last decade, you can tell that Smash Bros. Has been a key part of it, with the popularity of Smash Bros. Serving to promote more obscure characters and franchises like Ness, Lucas, and Earthbound. Thanks to Smash Bros., the Earthbound series has never been more popular in the States. But unfortunately for fans of the series stateside, only 2 games in the series have ever been released officially. So when Mother 3 came out for Game Boy Advance in April of 2006, with no planned US release date, the fans decided to take matters into their own hands. Members of the Starman.net community, led by Clyde Tomato Mandolin, planned to create their own translation from scratch. Thousands of hours were poured into translating and reprogramming the game into English, including over 1,000 pages of scripted dialogue. Finally, in October of 2008, a little more than 2 years after the Japanese release, the fan translation was finally finished and released online for the world to download as they please. The patch and guide were downloaded over 100,000 times in the first week alone, making this project a groundbreaking success. I mean seriously, to call this project an ambitious endeavor is a total understatement, because the level of dedication and effort it took to make this project makes it a complete marvel, and a testament to exactly how amazing fandoms can really be. The wise Gaben Newell once said that a fan remake of Half-Life wasn't just possible, but inevitable. And the Gaben's prophecy came to fruition on May 5th, 2015, when Black Mesa was released onto Steam Greenlight. This was a ground-up remake of the original Half-Life on the Source engine by the team over at Crowbar Collective. The remake was praised by Valve employees, critics, Half-Life fans, and even Gaben himself. Black Mesa took it a step above and beyond. Instead of just remaking the same levels, the team also tried to modernize the game by fixing design flaws and adapting levels to more accurately reflect modern gameplay styles. And in a similar fashion, after the release of Fallout 4, a team of modders named Road to Liberty announced that they had begun recreating Fallout 3 in Fallout 4's engine. Unfortunately though, much like many other fan endeavors, they received a magic ticket in the form of a cease and desist letter. But sometimes a cease and desist order isn't the end of life for a project like this. A group of fan developers at Invader Studios were working on a fan remake of Resident Evil 2 called Resident Evil 2 Reborn. But instead of sending them a cease and desist order, Capcom actually called them and then invited them out to Japan. That way they could get suggestions from the fan developers on what they should put into their own official remake of Resident Evil 2, as well as asking the guys at Invader Studios their opinions on Resident Evil 7, which was, at the time, still unreleased. Capcom didn't slap these guys with a legal threat. They extended an open hand of invitation, creating a bridge of understanding and connection between the community and the developer. They welcomed questions, comments, and concerns so that they could improve their own game and make the best game possible for their fans, making this a truly transformative experience that the world of video games desperately needs to see more of. And obviously it worked, because when Resident Evil 2 dropped, it was a smash success with fans and critics alike. But unlike Capcom, Nintendo has been a little more heavy-handed with their pursuits of copyright. Just like Capcom, Nintendo was working on a remake of 1991's Samus Returns for 3DS. But just like the devs over at Invader Studios, fans had actually been working on a remake of their own for a long time. AM2R is short for another Metroid 2 remake. Zero Mission was a remake of the 1986 original with updated graphics and a more in-depth story. Taking inspiration from this, many groups of fan developers began work on various different attempts at remaking the game's 1991 sequel, Metroid 2 Return of Samus. And finally, in 2008, a team came together, led by Dr. M64. And for the better part of the next decade, this gang of impassioned hobbyists were hard at work creating the ultimate Metroid labor of love. The fan project was finally released in full on August 6, 2016, more than half a decade after the project began. Coincidentally, it also coincided with the franchise's 13th anniversary, something that Nintendo themselves actually failed to acknowledge, much to many fans' dismay. But one day after the fan game's release, Nintendo issued a cease and desist to the game's developers. But once something is on the internet, it's kinda hard to take it off there, so it's not that hard to find a copy of it floating around, even if it's not on the official website anymore. Regardless, the very next year at E3 2017, an official remake for the 3DS was announced, releasing a few months later on September 15th, just a little more than a year after AM2R. With AM2R's near decade-long development cycle, there's no way that Nintendo only found out about the game post-release, leading many to suspect that Nintendo actually wanted the game to come out. That way they could drum up hype and demand for their own 2D Metroid remake the very next year. But now is where we shift from skeevy business practices to something that's a little bit more horrific, into the foggy depths of Silent Hill. When the HD releases of Silent Hill were released, they were met with utter disgust by fans. These re-releases of 2 and 3 were based off of unfinished beta builds of the game, and were packed to the brim with glitches and graphical errors, leaving it up to fan modders to modify the inner workings of the PC edition of Silent Hill 2 in order to get the game running on modern machines with a more current frame rate and aspect ratio. This is something that fans finally achieved with the release of Silent Hill 2 Enhanced Edition. If getting a hold of a CRT and an original PlayStation 2 is out of the question, then this fan mod is undoubtedly the best way to play the game. Unfortunately, Silent Hill 3 doesn't have the same extensive amount of mod support, but I feel like given the continued popularity of the franchise, it's really only a matter of time before 3 and 4 receive the same treatment as 2. But moving on to a project that's a little bit more personal to me, Spider-Man 2 Project RE is an attempt to overhaul and retexture the entirety of the GameCube edition of Spider-Man 2, upgrading the game with HD and 4K textures, as well as adding in additional costumes that weren't available in the original game. I've been involved with helping the creators promote this project for almost a year now, and watching them create content for it and seeing the project grow in real time has been an amazing experience. I've done a live stream playing the game, so if you'd like to see the game in action, be sure to check that out. And also, if it's the future, like post-2020, check my channel to see if I've done a full video on Project RE, because I'm seriously considering it. But no promises though. That being said, I'm going to cut this a bit short and move on to the next game, that way I can cover more of this later if I do make that video. Moving on. Simpsons Hit and Run is regarded by many as the best Simpsons game, and is easily one of the best racers of the PS2 generation. And now thanks to modders, a game that's already packed to the brim with content now has even more, giving veteran Hit and Run fans and newcomers alike a solid reason to pick up the game for the first time in over a decade. This is one of those circumstances where I'm just going to let the footage speak for itself. Revolution Kart is a mod for Mario Kart DS made by Rover. It's a complete overhaul that transforms the game completely, and the aesthetics are incredibly charming. It gives the game a whole new vibe and feel, making the game feel like Super Smash Kart in a way, with a whole bunch of new added characters like Kirby, Sonic, and a couple of Pokemon, as well as adding pre-existing tracks from other games, like Cocoa Hills and Mute City. You can check out Revolution Kart DS on Rover's YouTube channel here. Believe it or not, this isn't actually the first time that I've done a video on mods. In the past, I've done a video on a mod for Tony Hawk Pro Skater called Thug Pro, a video on mods for Spider-Man 2000, one on mods for the PlayStation Classic, as well as streams of game mods like Spider-Man 2 Project RE. So if you're interested, be sure to check those out in the description down below, and let me know what you thought in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed the video, maybe drop a like and consider subscribing, or checking out another video even. And finally, I'd like to thank Josh for editing this video, and I'd also like to thank my lovely supporters on Patreon for helping make it happen. As always, without support from viewers like you, nothing I do on this channel would be possible. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you. This has been Swim Team Prime, signing off.